calling on Brad Wall to do what's right. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. It's pretty well known and pretty obvious that I like Brad Wall. Like many across Canada, I've asked the Premier of Saskatchewan, I've asked him personally to consider running for the leadership of the Conservative Party. He said no. The reason is that Wall has run a pretty good ship in a province that was once an economic basket case in Canada. But under the stewardship of Wall and his Saskatchewan party, the province has been saved from living under the job-killing NDP hordes. Yes, I said the D, please take note of that. But that doesn't mean all is good and well in the land of wheat and mustard. Just like in neighboring Alberta, resource revenues are falling. The drop in the price of oil, natural gas, lower demand for potash and other resources means there's pressure on the books for Wall's government. But the unfortunate part is he's looking at going the socialist route, because by all accounts, it looks like Wall could be raising taxes in his budget next week. Brad, that's the wrong move. When Justin Trudeau announced his plan for forcing a national carbon tax on any province that didn't have one, Wall said it was the wrong move because it would hurt the economy. Well, the same applies here. The economy's fragile. It's not time to be raising taxes. But Wall has said all options are on the table. He isn't ruling out tax hikes, and there's speculation he could be raising the PST from 5% to as much as 8%. That business and personal income taxes could be hiked. Property taxes, they've already been hiked by the province. And yes, while that money goes to municipalities, the hike was mandated by provincial action. And as the saying goes, there's only one taxpayer. Of course, there's lots of support for Wall to raise taxes in the province's mostly left-wing, never met a socialist they didn't like media. The Regina Leader-Post, they've run an editorial calling on Wall to raise the PST. Provincial Affairs columnist Murray Mandrick, he's warning against the government ever cutting spending. The Star Phoenix, they're just as socialist, and CBC never met a tax hike that it didn't like. So there's going to be pressure to raise taxes, but the answer needs to be no. Like so many governments, even ones run by people assumed to be conservative, even people that are friendly to conservatives, the provincial government in Saskatchewan doesn't have so much a revenue problem as a spending problem. I'll admit, the provincial government's taking a hit due to resource prices. They've taken a hit as fewer people are working, and that means less money flowing in. The provincial economy is slowing. I get that. But then there's the other side of the ledger. Did you know that on a per capita basis, Saskatchewan is the second highest spending province in Canada? That's right. Check out this chart from RBC Economics. In 2014-15, the per capita spending by the government of Saskatchewan was $12,015. In 2015-16, it rose to $12,938, a 7% year-over-year increase. When Wall and his Sask party came to power, by the way, back in 2007-2008, spending was just $9,021 a year, which put them behind Alberta, Manitoba, and Newfoundland. But in the current fiscal year, well, they're expected to spend a slightly reduced $12,542 per person, making them second only to Newfoundland. That's right, folks. Brad Wall's outspending Rachel Notley, Christy Clark, Kathleen Wynne, even the government of Quebec, which, regardless of who is in power, is essentially a socialist state. Now, I know Saskatchewan has a small population of just over 1 million people. It's spread over huge tracts of land. They don't get the efficiencies that Ontario and Quebec might get with their concentrated urban populations. But it's not as if those two provinces, which have much larger land masses, don't also have to service a population that is often rural and remote as well. What Brad Wall should be doing is looking at cutting spending, tightening the provincial belt, as it were. That's what the Canadian Federation of Independent Business is calling for. The CFIB, the people that represent the job creators, are saying, forget tax hikes, cut spending, just like so many of their members and their members' families have had to do with their own budgets. When the CFIB asked members in Saskatchewan what the provincial government should do, well, they asked them to rank their choices. 72% said cut spending. 56% said run a small deficit, balance the books next year. 21% said don't hike taxes, but maybe boost user fees. Only 7% said raise taxes. When your job creators talk, governments need to listen. Final point on this, I want to point out here that the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, very left-wing group, agrees with me on tax hikes. In an interview with local CBC, the organization's provincial director warned against raising taxes. Quote, in an economic downturn, it's really not a good idea to raise taxes. Of course, they would actually have the province run deficits forever. I wouldn't. Families across Saskatchewan have had to make do with less because of the economic downturn. Why shouldn't the government make do with less as well? Be smart about the cuts, be prudent, don't hack off vital services, but surely, like any business or family out there, Premier Wall and his government should be able to find 10% savings rather than taking more money from the pockets of people that are already tapped out. If you like the video you just watched, make sure you never miss a Rebel video again. Click here to subscribe or head on over to the Rebel.media and become a member. Access content only available to the cool kids.